When it comes to the wheelchair class on offer for new D&D, the rejection of it, do you think people reject it based on bigotry? Do you think people are saying people in wheelchairs are not welcomed in the hobby? Is that what you believe, political activist, that is pushing the idea that rejecting this wheelchair class is done out of bigotry? Do you really believe that? Well, I have a feeling that you don't believe that and that you know the truth. Or if you do, you're delusional. Either one doesn't matter. Why is the wheelchair class being picked apart or rejected? It's being rejected because the people you're bringing it to are nerds. They're not rejecting it based on bigotry. They'll reject it because they don't feel like it's justified, like it wouldn't work, like it's unrealistic. They'll do what nerds do. They pick apart anything you offer for these games. And then let's jump over to Lord of the Rings, which we know the majority of that audience is nerds. And you're going to look at orcs and say orcs represent black people, so if we represent orcs as being nothing but evil, it's racist towards black people. Yet you're coming at a group of people that would never think like that. Tolkien himself was clearly a nerd, right? He clearly did not put orcs in there to represent black people. And the nerds that watch the movies, read the books, none of them came at it like orcs represent black people. Nobody ever seen those orcs and then went out and mistreated black people because of being influenced by the orcs. That means the bigotry that is claimed, around the wheelchair, the rejection of the wheelchair class, and the bigotry claims around orcs, those fantasy monsters, it's all nonsense and it's not real. And you've come to a community of people where you're looking for bigotry, but all you're really going to find is nerd rage. What we expect. Oh, why are people so mad in the tabletop role-playing game hobby about the wheelchair class? I get you. But that's how nerds are. They're mad about all kinds of things that don't make sense to be mad about. But they're not mad about it because they're bigots that are rejecting people that want to be represented or something silly in these games. That's not why at all. So if you tie the wheelchair class to the rejection of it, or orcs to some form of bigotry going on within the fan base of Lord of the Rings and people that play tabletop role-playing games, you're a delusional, deceitful fool. And you're not just trying to fool us, you're fooling yourself. Because even if you know better, if you keep telling that lie, you'll start believing that lie. I have ran games for people from just about every walk of life. Every race. Gay people, trans people, disabled people. I have never turned anyone away. I don't care about these things. Just take the game serious. Give me your best effort. And if you do and you respect the process and you respect how this works, I'll accept you into the game. I don't care if you have green skin and long fingernails. I don't give a damn. And there's nothing I want to put in the game that would be to be hateful towards some other group, right? Another race or people that are disabled. At the same time, I don't care about representation in a game where you're looking to be something that you're not. I don't need you to be represented. You're there to play a character that's not you. The whole idea of escapism in tabletop role-playing games is to get into a world and into a person, into a mind that is not yours and escape the real world, escape your life for a period of time. Actually, it's tabletop role-playing games are quite opposite when it comes to the idea of representation. They're purposely not trying to represent your life in the real world. It's trying to represent something opposite from your own experience. So we don't need someone of every race being in the pictures or written down in the books. At the end of the day, I don't care what color you are. We've always had people from every walk of life in the hobby. since the 70s, 80s. Remember, the game wasn't just played in a white so-called nation. Other nations that you wouldn't call white nations, like going to Japan, were doing tabletop role-playing games. And I've known gay people, trans people, people of every race to be part of the hobby. And I've experienced gaming with all of these types of people. And the reason I could encounter these types of people is none of them were turned away. Quite opposite. In reality, we were turned away by society for decades. We would be called nerds, picked on, laughed at, made fun of. So if you were part of a group that you felt like was being rejected, or as an individual you were being rejected by society, maybe they're being bigots towards you or hateful towards you for whatever reason, if you came to the tabletop role-playing game hobby, you'd find a home. You wouldn't be rejected. You wouldn't see anyone trying to put anything into the games that was focused on hating you. Never. We have always been a very open hobby. And probably more open than most groups, as far as going back to the 70s and 80s. So when there were other groups still being hateful and rejecting certain people, this hobby wasn't. So when I look at political activists coming into the hobby now, trying to treat it like we've always been bigots, it's always been hateful, and now they got to come in and represent people and save the hobby from its bigot itself. It's all a made-up lie. It's just not true. It's just not true. We don't need people to be represented in the books. You're here to play someone who's not you, right? We don't need that. We don't have a history of this extreme bigotry. So we don't need heroes to come in and save the hobby from itself. The hobby's doing quite well. Actually, in reality, by coming into the hobby and pretending that there is some bigot history, you're hurting the hobby. And you're putting a spotlight on hate. And at the end of the day, where there's no hate, you might be the one that starts creating hate. So you're not saving anyone, you're hurting us. And I think that is true when it comes to left-wing political activists in the hobby. I know some right-wingers in the hobby, I just don't see them doing the same thing. They might have their opinions, but I don't see them pushing in the same way. And they don't have the big companies like WotC backing them. WotC backs far-left political activism. It just does. Now, it might do it for very negative reasons, and they might be using these political activists, but either way, that's what's being done. I'm not going to give no more time to the wheelchair thing or the orcs thing. I'm going to do this video, and I hope to leave it at that. I mean, unless the world half blows up on me and suddenly I have to say something about it, I will. But for the most part, I don't really want to go back on these things because it's all fake. None of it's real. The hobby doesn't have a history of bigotry. You don't need representation of everyone in the books. It's just not a thing. We're doing good. We're still doing good. And making sure that we don't start, trying to backtrack to something that's not real. That would be a wise thing. The best we can do is ignore the political activists and ignore companies like WotC that are trying to cater to these people. Anyway, for now, take care. You know what you can do? You can hit the like button. You can share the video. Oh, and there's another button you can press. That one that lets you subscribe to my channel for more content. Oh yeah, there's that bell thing. You can press that so you know when I've uploaded a new video right away.